name's Hideout and welcome to the Pantheon, where today we're going to have a look at Tivash. A rather interesting name and a rather uninteresting card, to be quite honest with you, but there are some really cool cards that you can use with him. Tivash, Gloom Summoner, is a 5-mana 4/4 with lifelink. And he reads, at the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, you may pay X life, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. If you do, create an XX black demon creature token with flying. And he's got some rather interesting artwork where he's sort of like stood. I don't really know what he's doing. He's got a knife anyway. Sort of cool. You know, he's interesting at least anyway. So, what can we do with him? Well, we want to gain a bunch of life and then make use of the big, large token, really, don't we? So, please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be making videos like this about every commander card, well, every legendary creature that comes out. And if you want to see them, please do. Without further ado, let's get on to number 5. And in at number 5, we've got Blood Tribute, which is a 6-mana sorcery with kicker, tap and untap vampire you control. So as an additional cost, you can tap a vampire you control. Target opponent loses half his or her life rounded up. If Blood Tribute was kicked, you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So we're going to be gaining an absolute ton of life, but this does sort of pen us into being a vampire tribal deck. But there is quite a lot of synergies in vampires. Twilight Prophet is a 4-mana 2/4 with flying, that's a vampire, and Ascend, so if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have the city's blessing, reveal the top card of our library. Put it into your hand. Each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the card's converted mana cost. So, nice bit of life gain that can trigger our commander to get us some, big tokens. Then, Calestria Highborn is a 2-mana 2/2 vampire. And when it or another vampire you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay a black. If you do, target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So again, nice little trigger on life gain, can pad out our life, and then we can make a token using all of it. Finally, Defiant Bloodlord, 7 mana for a 4/5 flying vampire. Whenever you gain life, each target opponent loses that much life. So we can just gain a ton of life and ping our opponents to death with it. Which brings us on to Sangromancer, another vampire. 4 mana for a 3/3 with flying. Whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may gain 3 life. And whenever an opponent discards a card, you may gain 3 life. So we could run a couple of cards that sort of wheel everyone's hand and make them discard, or just any board wipe will gain us an absolute ton of life. And then our commander will trigger making a large token. Malakir Bloodwitch is a 5-mana 4/4 with flying and protection from white. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses life equal to the number of vampires you control. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. So another nice payoff for vampires that makes us a really big token. Finally, Sorin Imperious Bloodlord, 3-mana planeswalker with 4 loyalty. Target creature you control gains death touch and lifelink. So lifelink, obviously a great way to gain some life with our big tokens. If it's a vampire, put a 1/1 counter on it. So bit of a benefit. +1, you may sacrifice a vampire. When you do, Sorin deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. So we can chuck a vampire away to gain some life. And then, -3, you may put a vampire creature from your hand onto the battlefield. So, nice bit of cheating of mana cost there. Which brings me on to number 4, and out of the vampire sort of masquerade. Alhammer's Archive is a 5-mana legendary artifact. If you gain life, you may gain twice that much life. So, then we have twice as much life to pay into making our token. And if you would draw a card except for the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. Black has a lot of good ways of drawing cards, whether it's Night's Whisper or anything like that. So this doubles all of that. Excellent, excellent card to use. Another couple of sort of incidental life gain cards. Aetherflux Reservoir, 4 mana for an artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. So it's life gain Storm, essentially. And you can pay 50 life. It deals 50 damage to target creature or player. So if we get to 50 life, we've got lethal sitting on board, or potentially you could kill a Saproling token with it. It's up to you. Then, Exsanguinate, double black and X, sorcery, classic here. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equals to the life lost this way. So this, if you make a lot of mana, this can just outright win you the game. or you can just pad out your life total and then turn it into a massive dude. Finally, we got Sorin Markov, 6 mana Planeswalker, 4 loyalty. It's +2, deals 2 damage to any target creature or player, and you gain 2 life. So, nice bit of life gain. But the main reason you want to play this card, -3, target opponent's life total becomes 10. So hopefully throughout the course of the game, the tokens that we've made will be bigger than 10 10s, and then you can swing in for potentially lethal on a player just by dropping Sorin and -3ing him. It's -7, you control target player during that player's next turn. One of my favourite effects in Magic, mind slavering people, is utterly miserable for them, and it just feels so good. Then we go to number 3. And at number 3, we've got Font of Agonies. So, with our commander and quite a few other things in our deck, we're going to be paying life. So for a single black mana, you get an enchantment with whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Font of Agonies. Pay 2, remove 4 blood counters from Font of Agonies, destroy target creatures. So, this could be sort of a very mana-intensive board wipe every single turn. We can just pew, kill everything. Garza's Assassin is a triple black 2/2 human assassin, and you can sacrifice it to destroy a target non-black creature. But it has the recover ability, which is a very bad ability, but if you want to pay life, this is a really good way of doing it. So recover, pay half your life, round it up. When another creature is put into your graveyard from play, you may pay half your life rounded up. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Otherwise, exile it from your graveyard. So if you don't pay it, you just lose this in your graveyard, but you could potentially bring it back. It's 3 devotion, you can kill some creatures with it, whenever you we sacrifice a creature or something like that. It's a cool card, and it's not that good, but it's interesting and it works quite well with Font of Agonies. Blood Tracker is a 4 mana 2/2 vampire with flying, and you can pay black and pay 2 life, put a 1/1 counter on Blood Tracker. When it leaves the battlefield, draw a card for each 1/1 counter on it. So this can get out of hand, we can pay a ton of life and then draw a ton of cards when we sacrifice it or it dies. Then we've got Nightmare Lash. 4 mana for an equipment. Quick creature gets +1/+1 for each swamp you control. So this can very easily make our commander lethal if we've got a ton of lands on the battlefield. And equip is pay 3 life, which means if we have 2 creatures on the field, we can pay 3 life to swap it over and over again. Which, you know, if you want to pay a ton of life, get a ton of counters, yeah, we can do that sort of thing. Which brings us on to number 2. And at number 2, we have Essence Harvest. 3 mana for a sorcery. Target player loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So, as I said earlier, hopefully our tokens are absolutely massive because we've, gained a ton of life and then paid a ton of life. And if it is, Essence Harvest will blast someone to death, and we gain a ton of life for it, which will make another massive token. It's really, really cool, and the artwork, look at it, it's absolutely horrendous. Darken at its finest. Very similar to this, Writer's Consumption. 2 mana for a sorcery, but as an additional cost to cast this, you sacrifice a creature. It deals damage equal to a sacrificed creature's power to target player. You gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. So we'll get another token back with all that life gain. Severed Strands, very similar. 2 mana for a sorcery. There's additional cost to cast this. You sacrifice the creature. And you gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. Destroy target creature an opponent controls. So we're not going to kill our opponents, but we'll remove their biggest threat. Then finally, Disciple of Bolas. 4 mana for a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice another creature. You gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. So we're going to have tons of life, which will pump into another token. Tons of card draw, absolutely fantastic on just a 4 CMC body. Mirror the Moaning Well is a legendary land, and lands are incredibly powerful because they don't take up a deck slot. They just sit there on the battlefield and you can use them when you need them the most. Pay 3, tap it, sacrifice a creature. You gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. So if our opponents are pointing a removal spell at our big dude, we sacrifice it, gain life, and then we can pump it into our commander at end of turn. Whipper Erebos. Lifelink, as I said, great way of gaining life so we can pay a ton of life, and giving all of our creatures lifelink is very powerful. 4 mana for a legendary enchantment artifact. And you can pay 4, tap it, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of your next end step. If you would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere. Activate this ability only time you could cast a sorcery. So, bring back our big dude, swing in, gain a ton of life, pay that life with our commander. And finally, Devour Flesh. 2 mana for an instant. Target player sacrifices a creature, and gains life equals that creature's toughness. So, we could use this against our opponents, you know, if they've only got their commander on the field. 2 mana, destroy their commander. Or we could target ourselves, sacrifice our big dude, you know, gain a ton of life. Jobs are good. Which brings me on to number 1. And at number 1, we have Eternity Vessel. Now, we're going to pay a lot of life in this deck. And being able to springboard our life total back up to a high life total is very, very important. Eternity Vessel, 6 mana for an artifact. Enter the battlefield with X charge counters on it, where X is your life total. Then landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may have your life total become the number of charge counters on Eternity Vessel. So with this, if we have 40 counters on it and we pay 39 life, when we play that land, we are actually gaining 39 life. So if your life total becomes it, you gain all of that life back. So, admittedly, we then could end up playing 39 life with our commander to make a 39-39, but with a couple of the cards I've shown you, it could end up killing our opponents. Similar to this, these are a couple of cards that just work well in the deck. Or Lich's Mastery could be terrible in the deck. So, 6 mana for a legendary enchantment with hexproof. You can't lose the game. Whenever you gain life, draw that many cards. So, we're going to gain a ton of life, so we've eaten a load of cards. Whenever you lose life, for each 1 life you lost, exile a permanent you control or a card from your hand or graveyard. So, if you've got Lich's Mastery, I would not recommend paying life because you're going to be losing a ton of life and exiling all your permanents. Unless that's your plan. I mean, if you want to do it, do it. And then, if it leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. We could draw a ton of cards, but it does come with a downside sometimes. Killing Wave is an interesting sorcery, so for a black and X, for each creature, its controller sacrifices it unless he or she pays X life. So, why is this good in the deck? Well, if we've gained a ton of life and then not put it into our commander, we're just sitting at like 80. We could cast this for 10, and you know, we have 4 creatures. Yeah, we could pay 40 life. So we could keep our creatures, but our opponents, more than likely, they wouldn't be willing to pay that. So this can be a very good one-sided board wipe. Finally, Witch of the Moors. 5 mana for a 4/4 with Death Touch. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature and you return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Excellent bit of value and just triggers off any life gain. It's really, really powerful. And those are my top 5 cards for this brand new commander. He's quite cool. I wouldn't personally build him, but if you like life gain, you want to make some massive dudes, this guy has it all for you. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe. Please give it a like. And I'll see you soon. Bye.